Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Welcome to the Jon Krawczynski Show, the season wrap-up edition. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. We are presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Make sure to watch us on YouTube and follow the Jon Krawczynski Show on Instagram and Facebook so you see each episode as it is released. Check out all the other great shows at TalkNorth.com, including Chin Music, our baseball show with Roy Smalley and Lavelli Neal III, myself, Don Mitchell Show, Mark Rosen Show, etc., etc. We appreciate everybody who watches. Easiest way to watch and listen, subscribe to your favorite podcast app, unless you want to find this show on YouTube. John also contributes to the Viking Update Show, which sometimes includes Alec Lewis, who also does his own Viking show at the network. Thanks for all the support. We appreciate it. John, I'm not even going to ask a first question. I'm going to say, after everything you've seen and heard and analyzed the last few weeks, what is front of mind for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's sort of twofold right now. One is, I think that in the immediate aftermath of any season ending before you wanted to, certainly when you end with a 30-point loss at home in a game 6, it's very easy to say everything is bad, everything needs to be changed, this is a failure. And when I think back on this season, I think it fell short of expectations, but I still think it was largely an enjoyable season, and especially an enjoyable playoffs, to see them beat Denver in 6 games when they were so shorthanded, to really take a great San Antonio team to 6 games when they were shorthanded. And so I liked the way that it ended over the last couple of weeks before the game 6 loss to San Antonio. That said, the overwhelming feeling to me right now is they're just not good enough. That, when you look at what San Antonio and Oklahoma City have built and the staying power that they are expected to have over the next several years, that this Timberwolves team probably went as far as it was going to go and now needs some changes to close the gap on what San Antonio and Oklahoma City have become. And it is a big challenge, and it is an obvious challenge, because the simple fact is what Rudy Gobert said: the better team won, and San Antonio was better, by a significant margin. I would have loved to see Anthony Edwards fully healthy. I would have loved to see Dante DiVincenzo out there. I think it would have been more competitive, but San Antonio is really, really good, and they're only going to get better. And so how does this team go about changing the roster to get to a point where maybe you have a little bit more of a chance to beat those two teams?
Is that a Giannis trade? If it's not a Giannis trade, is there another star you could possibly get? And if you can't get a star, how do you improve?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. Yeah, it's possibly a Giannis trade. I think it would be very hard to pull off, because there will be other teams that get involved in this bidding that probably have a few more draft picks, that maybe have a young player that is a little more attractive to the Bucks to get things going. And so it will be very difficult for the Wolves to pull off, but I would expect that they will try to revisit that, because this is something that has been on their radar for more than a year now. And getting Giannis to pair with Anthony Edwards would be, I think, a significant upgrade, certainly on the number 2, that, kind of wingman by his side. If you cannot pull off a Giannis deal, there are other options out there. Maybe it's Kyrie Irving. I don't know that Ja Morant is the dice you want to roll, but the other avenue that you can explore is, if you do move like a Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert or something like that, sort of reconfiguring the hierarchy of this team. And maybe then you make Jaden McDaniels your number 2. And maybe if he is a little more empowered offensively, maybe you get a little more consistency from him that way. Jaden has improved every summer for the last 5 years. And if he were to come into this next season knowing that it's going to be Ant at the number 1 spot and at Jaden at the number 2 spot, maybe you can get him to take one more leap. And maybe that kind of changes the way that everything looks and significantly bolsters their chances of being a team that can be more difficult to deal with offensively than they have been. And so those are the 2 avenues I see, is you make a big swing for a Giannis, for a Kyrie, or you make a different kind of lesser impact move where you're not getting as much back in return, but you are clearing a path to see if Jaden McDaniels is ready to really be a bona fide number 2 scorer, two-way player, all of those things.
Disclaimer first, it hasn't all been bad with Julius. He's had really good months. He's had good half seasons. He's, of the 5 playoff series he's played in, he played well or pretty well in 3 of them. The problem is his bad is really bad. And so the first question is, would you be trading him just to move him out of the way, or do you think you get a reasonable asset in return?
I think that it's really unfortunate that the Wolves season ended the way that it did, because Julius Randle's value on the open market probably took a pretty significant hit. He played so well in the playoffs last season. He was one of the very best players in the league through the first 2 rounds of those playoffs. So we have seen him do it. He has been really impactful here. I mean, Chris Finch did call him the most important player on this team at one point earlier this season, and that's because they ask so much of Julius Randle as a playmaker, as a scorer. He has had huge moments defensively at times, but to your point, Jim, he's been inconsistent. And coming off of a San Antonio series where he was really struggling, I do think that it only sort of exacerbated the concerns that the league has about Julius Randle and about his ability to consistently deliver in those kinds of playoff settings. And so I think that his value is probably a little diminished right now today than it would have been at this time last year. But you can always look around, and I think there are teams that would like to have a veteran guy who's not making, egregious money for him. He's in the right low 30 millions for a starting power forward that can put up really big numbers, is never a problem in the locker room or anything like that, and is a good guy and a good player. And so I don't think that they necessarily would have to incentivize to get off of him or anything like that. And I don't think that there's going to be we have to move Julius Randle at all costs type of approach. But if you want to dramatically change the makeup of this roster, a Randle trade is probably the way to do that most effectively. And it doesn't mean that you have to blame him for everything that went wrong. Again, I really have enjoyed Julius Randle. I think that I think that he really poured his heart and soul into making this change from New York to Minnesota. But you're right. When he gets into funks and when it isn't going well, it's hard sometimes for him to pull out of those periods. And so I do think that it is an option they will explore pretty aggressively throughout this summer, and just to see what else is out there and available to them. But if we have seen the last of Julius Randle, I enjoyed my experience covering him, but I would understand if the Timberwolves say, you know what, we have to look at kind of a new reconfiguration of this starting 5 and of kind of changing things around Anthony Edwards. And that's going to be the first possibility that we look at.
I'd like to welcome one of our newer sponsors, Great Clips. We'll tell you more about them in a second. The point guard position, there are 8 different questions I could ask about it. Let's start with, any chance Io's back? If Io's back, is your starting point guard? Is there a role for Mike Conley on this team? And do they need a pure point guard? And could it be Mike Conley?
So yeah, let's just go one by one. I very much expect them to try really hard to bring Ayo Dosunmu back. I think he was a really good fit. It was unfortunate that he had some injury issues down the stretch, but he had some great moments. Of course, Game 4, 43 points against Denver. That was amazing. And so, yes, I do expect Ayo Dosunmu to get a very aggressive offer from the Wolves to come back here. And, they gave up some things to get him, and he is a guard that does fit alongside Anthony Edwards. I think he could be the starter alongside Ant, or you could bring him off the bench as well. Mike Conley has said that he is going to come back. It's definite that he's going to be in the NBA next season, playing for, I think it would be his 20th season. And so I would say that I would expect there's the best chances for him to come back to Minnesota. Joe Ingles will probably be moving on, so there is certainly a spot on the roster for a veteran sage guy. But I do think that, unlike Joe Ingles, I do think Mike Conley will figure into Chris Finch's rotation in some way, somehow. I don't think he's a starting player anymore. I think that he needs to be in a position where he is playing regularly, but not every single night and not 25 minutes a night. It's like conserving his energy for the bigger moments. And I think he can still help a team in select situations. So I think that they will try to bring Mike Conley back. I know Mike likes it here. His family likes it here. And so there's a good chance that he returns on a cheaper deal. That all leads to the big question of, like, what do you do at point guard, and do you need a traditional point guard? And I would say that it would be amazing if there was a traditional point guard to come here and play. There are no more traditional point guards in the league, okay? Like, that's not a realistic avenue to explore. Maybe Kyrie Irving is probably the closest to it. And so if something like that is viable, yes, I would like to see them pair someone like that with Ant. But I really think that the most viable and realistic scenario is you do get another combo style guard next to Anthony Edwards to play in that. It could be Ayo, it could be someone else. But Chris Paul is not walking through that door. John Stockton is not walking through that door. And so when you look at the achievable goals, to me, the way to go forward here is to look at what happened with Anthony Edwards in that role. And it was a choppy learning process for him to do. And I do think it put a strain on the team as he was trying to figure things out through this. Every single summer, we have seen Anthony Edwards look at a weakness and address it. 3-point shooting. I got to be a better 3-point shooter. Now I'm the best 3-point shooter in the league. I got to have a better post game and be better in clutch situations. Now I'm up for clutch player of the year. So this summer, it would seem to me that the best avenue forward for Anthony Edwards is to look and say, you know what? I have to be better at making those around me better and at empowering them, because the ball is going to be in my hands. That's not changing. I am the best player on this team. I am one of the best players in this league. And so I have to be better at reading the floor, at reading the game, at understanding how to get the ball to my teammates and then look for my own shot as well. And if he makes that his focus this summer, I don't have any reason to doubt that he would come into next season with a better feel for that responsibility, and he would be better in that role. Do I think he would immediately be James Harden or Luka Doncic? Probably not. But I think he can take real strides because he's really intelligent, because he really understands how important this is. And so if he goes into summer school and really studies that and really emphasizes that, he can make a leap in that area, and then they will be much better off with him and Io, or, another combo guy back alongside him, because I just do not see very many options to put next to him where it is a quarterback that runs the offense and he's off the ball all the time.
Okay, I have a question about Kyrie. First, we want to let you know we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
When something goes wrong at home, Aquarius Home Services makes the solution easy with one call to one team and no hassle to find a different handyman or company for each type of job. Aquarius has experts in heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical. That means you get the right expert every time and solutions you can trust. Right now, enjoy $98 off any heating, cooling, plumbing, or electrical repair. Aquarius, one call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at aquariushomeservices.com.
We also let you know that the Jon Krawczynski Show is sponsored by Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
So Kyrie is a genius basketball player, and he's, as you said, he's a combo guard who can run the point. Is getting him realistic, and can you trust him to stay healthy if you get him?
Realistic, I'm not sure. Just because, you can make a really good argument that Dallas should just keep him and play him alongside Cooper Flagg and go forward. That's a good situation. But if Kyrie is at a point where he says, I would rather be in an environment where I have a real chance to contend and win, and maybe asks to move on, then you could argue that, come to Minnesota, pair with Anthony Edwards, and you have at least a better chance of competing. Are you immediately going to be a favorite in the West? No, but I think you'd be a little higher up the food chain than the Dallas Mavericks right now. And so I think that would be the scenario that the Timberwolves would need to kind of unfold for them to have a chance to get him. The good news is that his salary is manageable with, some of the Wolves pieces to make happen. This is not like trying to get Giannis at $60 million and pull off a deal like that. So it's more feasible to play that game. And so let's just go down the road. If they somehow found a way to get Kyrie Irving, the only thing to me that I would be very concerned about is his health. Coming off of the torn ACL, at his age, is he someone that you can say, we're going to have him for 65 games and he's going to be our guy, and then come the playoffs, he'll be ready to go. But from a pure fit skill level standpoint, I think it's a beautiful fit. I know that Anthony Edwards has an incredible amount of respect for him after what Kyrie did to them a couple years ago in the Western Conference Finals. I do also think, and just this is from very afar, but watching Kyrie over the last 2 years and the way that he has sort of gotten away from all of the baggage that he had earlier in his career with the off-court comments and things of that nature, he just has seemed to me to be in a really great place in terms of who he is, what he's trying to accomplish, how he helps the team. And so I think from a mentality standpoint, I think he'd be a really good addition to this locker room. And as a veteran leader who's won a championship, who's been in multiple finals, who is a great clutch player, I think who can get other people involved, but also get his own shot, and a guy who's an underrated defensive player. I think he's pretty solid on that end of the floor as well. And so if you look at all of those boxes, I think he checks, to a high degree. It's just a matter of, is he at this stage of his career going to be able to be healthy and play a bunch of minutes on a team that wants to contend? And given the relative lack of options elsewhere, I would roll that dice. I would say, yeah, let's give it. If you can get him for a reasonable price, and kind of go into it then with an Ant and Kyrie backcourt, like that would be really fun to watch. And I think it could be a really special pairing.
Take me inside the heads of the owners. They've been pretty quiet. They've stayed behind the scenes. Is this a moment where you might see some impatience or some forcefulness from them?
Yeah, I think that, you're right. They have been really quiet. My impression so far from this ownership group is that they do value stability and continuity above all else, but they do want to contend as well. And so I think that they were very much in favor of running it back this season, and having largely the same roster intact and giving this team another chance. And now that it has kind of flamed out the way that it did, I do think that there will be appetite in the ownership group to improve the team, to make a move or two, to see if there is a way to take that next step. Because I think one thing that both Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez understand is that they have Anthony Edwards entering his prime, and he'll be 25 next year. Probably the next 3 to 4 years are like when you really hit your athletic and playing prime in the NBA. And so there is a real appetite to surround him with the players that he needs to give him the biggest chance that he can to go deep in the playoffs. And he has proven to be the type of a player that when you have him on your team, there is a playoff floor, and there's also a ceiling of you can win multiple rounds no matter who. Like I cannot say enough about what we saw from Anthony Edwards in these playoffs. Like playing with his knees in the state that they were, I bet he was 65% of what he normally is. And he still found a way on most nights to be a real factor offensively. And that shows that he has a level of leadership and sort of determination that is a cut above most players. And so when he shows you that, and when he shows you that hunger to be a winner and to contend, then I think you owe it to him to do whatever you can to give him the most resources possible to win. And I think that they recognize that. And so I would expect them to be very supportive of any kind of aggressive move making this summer to kind of improve this team's lot and give them another shot.
Well said on Ant. That was so impressive. It's one thing to play hurt. It's another thing to excel while you're playing hurt. Who's in their prime right now, John? Speaking of primes.
Steve Terry?
Steve Terry. In the prime of his life, at least from a business standpoint, because TSR injury law has just become a monster. It was a small business. Now it's a very successful large business because they win lots of cases. We hope you don't need their help. But if you do, call 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. They'll help you out. They won't charge you unless they win your case. They win lots of cases. So for a higher level of representation, TSR injury law, 612-TSR-TIME. Also want to hear about John's experience with True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington, have been telling you about them for a while now. You go in there, go to truevision.com, set up your consultation. When you go into True Vision, they will take amazing care of you from the start to the end of your vision correction journey. They have you all the way through it. And I've told you before, but when you go in there, you feel so welcomed. You feel like a part of a family that wants to get you feeling and seeing your best. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you see that I'm not wearing any glasses. For years and years, I just wore glasses over and over and over again. And now to not have to deal with those hassles, to not have to deal with hassles of contacts, it really is life-changing. I've had just great luck with the LASIK surgery that I had with True Vision. I still see great. And it's just been a wonderful partnership, but they have helped me make my life easier, and they will help you do the same. So if you go to truevision.com, set up your consultation, tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you, get in there. They will take wonderful care of you, and you will leave thinking you should have done it 10 years ago, just like I did.
There will be a Twitter question at the end of the show sponsored by sglambchops.com. I'm wearing my sglambchops.com t-shirt and sweats as we do the show, as I almost always do. Love their stuff. Tell us what's happening with sglambchops.com.
Yeah, if you go to sglambchops.com, you put in the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops, and you can get a lot at Lamb Chops. They have unbelievably comfortable shorts, hoodies, hats, t-shirts. It's super high quality stuff. When you put on some Lamb Chops gear, you can feel that this is stuff that is going to last you a long time, and you're going to look great and feel comfortable in. You can wear it out on the North Loop on a Friday night, hanging out on the bar scene. You can be at home watching games on your TV and lounging and feel great with Lamb Chops on. And you'll see it all over. It's a local company. Jordan and Craig are at Wolves and Lynx games sitting courtside. You're going to see Lamb Chops gear all over Target Center at Timberwolves and Lynx games. It's a very, very cool kind of synergy that they have with the Twin Cities, with the basketball scene. So go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
What do you see in terms of potential growth and improvement from within the roster? And we're talking here Shannon, Clark, Beringer.
You know, I do think that there is plenty of potential for pretty significant developmental leaps going into next season. Certainly I would expect, and I think that the Wolves should do some things with their roster to clear space for Johan Beringer to play. Like, I don't sort of... I'm not mad at them for not playing him a lot in his first season as a 19-year-old coming over from overseas and just trying to get acclimated. I think easing him into things is a good idea. But when you look at what he is from a physical specimen standpoint, from a work ethic standpoint, I just think that he is a ball of clay that can be molded into a very, very good player, but you also need to get him out there, get him playing now, and let him be a part of this rotation. And Wolves coaches are incredibly high on his potential. I just watch him in practice and look at the way that he moves for a guy his size and think that he's absolutely can be a starting level player in this league. So you add that, you look at Terrence Shannon Jr., he played very, very well at the end of the season as long as he stays healthy. And I think, you know, continues to work all summer long on maybe kind of refining his right hand and giving himself a few more options at the rim. I think that he can become a very good rotation player. I loved what we saw from Shannon in the playoffs in terms of having the ball in his hands. I think that Chris Finch did a good job of recognizing what he was missing earlier on in the Shannon evaluation, because, you know, they had Shannon out there with Anthony Edwards and kind of standing in the corner as some sort of a decoy, and that's not really fitting his skill set as well. I mean, Shannon can be a guy that brings the ball up, that takes some of that pressure off of Anthony Edwards. And yeah, he has to refine his finishing package. He has to kind of continue to work on his jump shot and his consistency, but he has all of the athletic tools and all of the work ethic to kind of project that, yeah, he can be better. Jalen Clark is one of those players who I think this is going to be a very big summer for him. He is a very good defensive player that, as Chris Finch has said and as Clark has acknowledged as well, he has to kind of learn the league a little bit more so that he's not defending every single player the same way. And he adapts to the differences in skill sets of the guys that he guards. But there's no question he can be a difference maker on that end. He just has to really continue to add to his offensive game so he's not a one-dimensional player. There are very few guys in the league anymore who are just defensive stoppers and offensive liabilities at the wing position. Like, that's just not, you just don't see that very often. So Clark kind of, becoming a more consistent three-point shooter, maybe adding a little more off the bounce. I did like his cutting game that we saw during the regular season, but he definitely has to be just more reliable offensively to be able to get his defense on the court. And if he's able to just raise his level a little bit offensively, that gives them another weapon to use. And so there is plenty of room for growth. And it also has to be mentioned, Jim, that Ant, Naz, and Jaden have all come out of every summer that they've had in this league with more in their games. And so I still think that they have layers to add, and I think that they can improve as well. And so, I mean, some of the doom and gloom about this roster and about how, they've hit a wall and there's no improving this and without major trades. I mean, I do agree that some deals need to be made, but I do think it also discounts what these players have shown as in having an ability to develop, and what this coaching staff has shown as in having an ability to help them improve from year over year. And so it's, I think, a very realistic possibility that come training camp next season, Shannon, Clark, and Berenger have all improved dramatically and have become more viable regular components of a rotation, in addition to whatever improvements you get from Naz, Jaden, and Ant, which would be incredibly helpful, of course.
You and I have defended Finch on many times, is what I'm trying to say. Do you think ownership has any qualms about him remaining as the head coach?
I mean, every indication that I've gotten so far is that, he's coming back. He's got a couple of years left on his deal. Again, Mark and Alex have talked a lot about stability and wanting to have, kind of core leadership in place for a long time because they believe that's the way to build a franchise. I will say that there were a few things in the San Antonio series that certainly were glaring. I don't know why he did not start Naz Reid coming out of halftime of Game 6. I don't think it would have changed that whether they won or lost the game, but Julius Randle was struggling to such a degree that the move clearly was to put Naz Reid in the starting lineup right out of halftime. I asked him about it after the game, and he said, well, I put him in 2 minutes later. Well, 2 minutes later, the lead went from 12 to 18, and it was essentially any belief that the Wolves had put into themselves with that run in the second quarter was sort of squelched. And so there are some things like that where he has been, I think, too stubbornly committed to his ideal of what this roster is. And so there were some disappointments that way, but the vast majority of the Chris Finch experience has been overwhelmingly successful. And I mean, if you look at this Denver series this year, what he was able to do with a shorthanded team when they were very big underdogs, that's a remarkable coaching job. He, stitched a clown suit around JJ Redick in the first round of the Lakers series. He outcoached, the Phoenix staff when they had KD and Beal. The Wolves have had a lot of performances, especially in the playoffs, where this coaching staff has really come through. And so I just don't see, a reason to fire him and to move forward with someone else, just given the majority track record of him has been really, really good. And, he has some tweaks to make. I think he needs to change his offensive approach a little bit because he wants to run a very high-minded, high basketball IQ system that relies on reading and reacting and things like that. But he has players that are not necessarily super high basketball IQ players. And so he's going to have to tailor that a little bit and make it maybe a little more paint by numbers to get the most out of this team. But he can do that. Those are adjustments that he can make. And so I I expect him to be coming back next year. He's got, like I said, 2 more years left on his deal. But, we haven't heard definitively one way or the other yet, but it would very much surprise me if they moved on from Chris Finch, this summer.
Speaking of high basketball IQ and pure point guards, I went to see Olivia Miles play on Sunday night. She is going to be great.
Oh, man.
Just a pure, great passer, great thinker, really fun person to talk to. She's going to be a star. She's going to be an absolute blast. So we'll talk about her on Don Mitchell's show this week with our special guest, Leah B. Olson, who's made it national. She's always been a good broadcaster around town. She's now doing national WNBA games, so that'll be a fun show to tune into. Check out Don Mitchell's show, Dawn of Sports, at talknorth.com. A couple more subjects for John, and we'll get to our Twitter question. How are they doing in terms of finances, cap space, flexibility right now?
Well, so they're some of the moves that they've made over the last couple of years now with Kat, the Mike Conley trade and kind of getting back, they were able to go from a team that was bursting at the seams in terms of luxury tax and everything else to one that is in a much more manageable position right now financially. Now, when you look at their ability to make moves, a lot of times draft picks are kind of the fuel for making significant or really helpful moves. They can trade this year's pick, that's 2026 pick, a first round pick, that's they could do that on draft night. They have the 2028 pick that can be moved, but they don't have a lot of draft capital to move around. They do, they sent 4 second-round picks to Chicago for the Ayo Dosunmu deal, so they don't have a lot of seconds to kind of sweeten the pot either. So they're not kind of right up against the wall in terms of their flexibility, but they also are not, roaming free in a field of assets to be able to just wheel and deal however they want. So there's going to be challenges for Tim Connelly and Matt Lloyd to kind of go through here, this summer to try and make these trades and improve the roster. But I do think that they're pretty resourceful and they will have the means to go ahead and try and pull a few things off that will at least, when all the dust settles, you look at it and say, okay, this is going to be different next season, and give you a little bit of a reason to say maybe different will be good in that sort of in that scenario.
Last topic before they get to the final Twitter question. How do we view Karl-Anthony Towns and the Karl-Anthony Towns trade? And are you going to have a sleepover with Karl when you're covering the finals?
I do hope to cover the finals with Karl in it. I don't think I'll be staying at his New York pad, but I can't wait to see him if he gets to that point, because he has earned everything that he's gotten there. He's taken a lot of criticism in New York, but he's had a great playoffs. He seems to have found a nice niche with Mike Brown in what he is being asked of him and what he can execute. And so I'm thrilled for him. Like, he has always taken a lot of criticism, a lot of kind of scrutiny, and some of it has been deserved, but a lot of it hasn't been. And so if he can break through and get to the finals, it will be, a wonderful thing. And I think a lot of Wolves fans are rooting for him as well. I have seen sort of some of the reaction after the Wolves loss to say, well, the Knicks clearly won the trade and they never should have traded Cat and all of those things. And there's 2 reminders to give everyone. They had to make a move financially because of that second apron, and every team that has, these big, huge contracts has been or is going to be forced to do the same thing. So it was largely financially motivated because of the rules of the collective bargaining agreement. But also the other thing I'll remind people is that Dante DiVincenzo was hurt in the second round against Denver. And if he is healthy against San Antonio, he is a lot of what they didn't have to counteract the Spurs' aggressive defense. I don't know if they win that series with DiVincenzo, but I would expect that they would be a hell of a lot more competitive with him out there. And oh, by the way, they also got Yohan Béranger in that deal. And so it was very much about taking one massive salary and breaking it up to have more depth, which is key in this kind of current iteration of the league. And so you had Dante DiVincenzo, who had an amazing season and was a great plus-minus guy for this team all the way through and including in the playoffs. You have Béranger developing behind him. If he turns into a really good player, like that kind of factors into how you evaluate the trade. And Julius Randle was really good for them last year in the playoffs and really a helpful thing. And so it ended poorly this season, but I don't think that really changes the way that I look at that deal overall. And I think both teams have gotten, what they wanted out of it. And, the ultimate thing is I am rooting for Cat. I hope that it works out for him, and I hope he gets a shot to play for a championship and see what can happen there.
Let's wrap up the show with Twitter questions sponsored by sglambchops.com. Reminder, go to talknorth.com. You'll find 3 Viking shows. You'll find multiple hockey shows, Don Mitchell's show, Mark Rosen's Sports Monday, Chin Music with Roy Smalley, Lavelle E. Neal, myself. And we keep adding shows. So by the time you check, you'll probably find something new. If you like hunting and fishing, we also have outdoor content there via Ron Schara Productions. All right, Twitter question to wrap up the wrap-up show.
All right, this Twitter question from Brian Solo. Thanks to sglambchops.com. Go to sglambchops.com. Promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. This season felt like a slog, Brian says. Was that the weight of expectations coming off 2 Western Conference Finals appearances? Or was that everyone knowing that we really didn't have enough and Julius Rudy wasn't it in the deep playoffs? Or was it something else? And I think this allows us to get into something that was really telling in the exit interviews that you and I have talked about all season long, but just underscore it. Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, Mike Conley, several guys talked about, Jaden McDaniels talked about how moody this team was. And I really do think that the expectation is that having the continuity, from last season to this season, and then giving Naz Reid his contract, Julius Randle his contract, kind of everyone, the hope was that everyone was going to be in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. They all, had everything taken care of personally, financially. So they could just go out and play. And what we really did see for much of this season was that, this team had too many instances where guys were worried individually about their own things. Were they getting enough shots? Were they getting enough touches? Was, what was happening around them? Who was getting the opportunities instead of them? And so that was what I think made this thing a slog. I don't think that they were worried about the expectations necessarily. I don't think that they had any kind of doubts in their ability to get the job done. But I do think that they got too focused on the individual and not enough on the team. And that sounds very kind of hokey and puppy breath and cinnamon, but I really think what did hurt them a lot in the regular season was that this was a team that never really just kind of put aside its, individual interests for the betterment of the team until that first round of the playoffs, until they were facing an opponent that they all hated collectively and said, we are not going to let these guys beat us. And then they played the best basketball of their entire season because of that. But there were just too much of those individual agendas in this season. And I think that weighed things down a lot more. So there's going to have to be a reset of mentality and personality going into next season if they're going to hope to make a leap back into contention.
It is funny because I was looking forward to a year of continuity, and the continuity wasn't really a positive.
Yeah, no, it was more complacency, it felt like, than urgency. And you'd think bringing that team back that got its butts kicked in Game 5 against OKC, that there'd be a real determination, and it didn't. It just felt like everyone was kind of yeah, I got my money, but I need my shots, or I got this, I need that, and it that's what made the Denver series so and that first game against San Antonio so inspiring, was that okay, they put aside all of that, and then they showed what they were capable of, And unfortunately, there just wasn't enough of that this season.
Great stuff, Jon. I appreciate all your work this year. Of course, we'll continue the Jon Krawczynski Show through the off-season. There's always something interesting to talk about. Also, off-seasons, we can go on some tangents. We can be a little more goofy. We'll have a lot of fun with this show. Thank you to everyone who has supported in any way you have supported it. Thanks to all of our sponsors and everybody at TalkNorth.com. And we'll talk to you next week.